Welcome everyone to our studio. Today we're here to talk about the lights above me, but really, let's just take a look behind me first. We have three setups going on. There are actually three entirely different sets. To my right side, you can see that this is our day-to-day setup. We use this in the majority of our videos that you see out there. And behind me on the left side, we have two new sets. These are still works in progress, so bear with us, but we have an audio set in the back and a green screen. Now, what's really special about it is that for the most part, these are all lit at the same time right now. But what we're really here to talk about are the lights around and above me. These are all Nanlite lights. And because this is a studio, that means we need something that is repeatable, consistent, and reliable. We can come in here and just turn them on, and they look the same as they did the day before. After all, you want that in a video, especially if it's a series that's repeated or a specific look that you're going for from video to video. And so with that, we've already laid these out and pre-programmed them. I'm gonna show you how that's done, how you make those considerations for a studio like this, and how you can also double and even triple up the use of some lights for multiple stages. So for example, we have a light right here, this big key light right here, that is actually going to be used in all three. And that is just done through rotating the light and adjusting the intensity. I'll show you in a bit. So let's move over here where I'll show you the first setup using all of these Nanlite lights. Pretty nice. All right, so that was all handled by a scene preset here on the Nanlink app. What you're looking at is our main setup, and you can see that this is a pretty basic three-point lighting setup we've done here for the studio. What we're really playing with is some color contrast to try to separate the subject from the walls, but it also gives us the ability to dial in just that color if we want. Now, the preset does have all the intensities predefined. We have dialed that in ahead of time, so we know we just come in here, turn it on, and we don't have to think about exposure values that much at all. So now what we're dealing with are, like I said, four lights. We have the Forza 302. This is the biggest light in the bunch. This is the 300 watt. It's attached to a softbox that I'll get into. The fill light over there is a Pavo Slim 120C. And behind that, you can see it in the wide shot here, there is a FC 120C, and that's giving a nice little hair light to the subject. And that's with a snoot to really restrict the beam of light to just the subject. There's no spill at all, so it's really, really nicely controlled. Now, this setup, like I said, is done through the Nanlink app. I'm gonna get to that in just a bit. What you'll notice is that I can control each light independently. So for example, I can take out the color. Let's take the color out right now. There we go. So that is without the splash. If we wanted something a little more neutral, I could, of course, bring it back and dial it into a different color. I can go green if I want to. I can go red. And this is the kind of flexibility you get with an RGB light, of course, but having it remotely accessible just changes everything. This is what makes it easy on set. Now, one thing I think I should point out is that the Forza behind me, the 300, is actually a daylight only light. That's a daylight fixture, which means that in order to do what we're doing today, I actually gelled it with a CTO to 3200 Kelvin. Now, the reason I did that is because I wanted some more color contrast with the fill light. If you look, you can actually see that the fill side on camera left is a little cooler than the key side, and that's because I've balanced the Pavo Slim 120B over there, the fill light, a little cooler. It's actually not too much cooler, but it's at 4400 Kelvin as opposed to 3200 Kelvin. So it gives us just a little bit of contrast in the color, in the skin tone, as opposed to a kind of uniform color all around. I'm gonna go back actually to roughly what we had before. And to me, that looks fine because again, we're working with cooler tones on the side anyway, so it actually helps out here. And in a similar vein, the hair light back there is actually warmer. It's at 2700, so we get a little bit of a golden rim light around the subject as well. So that's nice and pleasing for a set like this, especially if we do go for something more uniformly warm. So let's move on to set number 2, where I'm gonna show you a little bit more of the app itself, because this light behind me is going to rotate around and be a key for that set as well. All right. Enough fun, back to work. We got to get the audio set going. So let's turn on the lights here and let's just see what happens. I'm gonna hit scene preset, you can see it here, and we're gonna hit audio set. and it turns right on. There we go, look at that. Everything comes on almost at once. And basically what we have here is a 3 lighting setup, so there's no 4th light except for an incidental light that we've included in there. We have an actual lamp that's sitting right above the monitor there. You can just barely see the bulb at the top of the frame, but it's giving a nice little warm cast onto the wall. What we are doing, however, is simulating that, using it as motivation for a hair light that is positioned right above. Now, what we've got going on here is a slight reconfiguration of what we just did before. And what I mean by that is that the Forza 302 that we have has literally just been rotated to the right to shoot into this corner here of the room. And it's been lowered in intensity a bit so that it works a little bit better in this space. And then we've added another FC120C, same as we had up here. This is, of course, another unit entirely. But we have that set to HSI mode so that we have this kind of tealish hue going onto the fill side, and that's to give us a little bit of color contrast. And then, like I said, we're mimicking the motivated overhead light with the rim light, which is another Forza 60C, and that one is set to 2700 Kelvin, so we get this really nice warm glow on the back of the head. The difference here, though, is that since we're using a light from the previous setup, it means that we actually have to set up the program in a very particular way, and I'll explain that right now. Now, normally what you do is you would set up an individual set for a series of lights. So for example, set 1, set 2, and set 3 could all have their own lights, but that's not what we're doing here. We're actually reusing one light. The reason why that's a problem is because in order to link a light to a set, you need to actually reset its connection. Now, what that means is that you can't have it connected to 2 sets at once. So the only way we have to get around this is to actually have all of the lights for every set in one set on the Nanlite app. So that means that every single light here is connected to one profile, essentially. And what we can then do is define scenes, and the scenes decide which ones are on and off, and of course the intensities and color variation. So for this, we have a main set, an audio set, and a green screen set, which we'll get to in a bit. The main set is what you just saw, and that reconfigures the lights to include the ones back here, whereas the audio set, after we rotate this unit, lowers the intensity and then turns on the rear units over here, the fill light and the hair light. So just to go over the setup a little bit from a rigging perspective, again, the Forza 302 is still on the pantograph. We have it just a little bit higher than it was before, and we simply rotated the unit. The softbox hasn't changed. Because we're shooting off of the corner from the set, it actually does maintain enough of a distance from him to act as a key light as opposed to a dead-on angle, which was a consideration. The fill light over here is just on a C-stand. We have it on wheels. Eventually, we are going to rig that up, so it's an option. Again, this is still a work in progress. And then in the back, we have a C-stand with an arm reaching overhead to get the hair light directly behind and tilted very low down so that you don't get any glare into the camera. And that pretty much does it. It's an open face back there, so there doesn't have to really be that much diffusion or directionality to it. It's a small light to begin with, so it doesn't have a huge spread, but that reflector in there does keep it constrained just enough. So that's it for the audio setup. We're actually going to reuse 2 lights from this. We're going to use the Forza again, and then swing the hair light around to the next set, so let's go right over there. All right, looking pretty good. So this is our green screen setup. Now we're going to talk about what's going on here. As you can see, I just moved the key light, but first I want to talk about the green screen itself. Green screens, as many of you probably know, are very tricky to light, especially if you want something that has a really even, consistent tone. You want something that's nice and saturated and separated from the subject, which, in my opinion, I think we've done a pretty good job of. So how exactly are we doing it? Well, we have 2 Nanlite Pavo Slim 60Cs here. These are basically cross-shooting, if you will, cross-lighting. We have one that's aimed very low to the ground, aiming up, and then one on the opposite side aiming down, kind of in a diagonal pattern. And that lets us get the corners pretty even. We could use a little bit more output, in my opinion, at least more spread, so something like the 120C is probably a better option here. But in order to light the entire studio, this is what we're going with. And honestly, I think it's doing the job just fine. So as you can see, this is just a good tip in general for green screens, just so you know. If you look at the waveform monitor here, we have a very, very even line that's going across the screen. You can see that we have mostly consistent lighting here, and that's exactly what you want to look for when you're doing this kind of work. So now if I look at the app though, I've actually grouped the green lights in their own group. It's still all in one set, but if I group them, I can control them with equal intensity and color value, so these will always match. And so with that, I've added this into a HSI mode here, and they're all on just straight green. And that means that we're actually blasting green light onto the green screen, which is a huge help compared to just blasting white light onto a green screen, which can wash it out. Especially once you start adding in your other lights for the subject. Now, we have done things to limit what's going on with the other lights, primarily with the key light here. It's obviously very close to talent, which means that we don't have to put it up that high. It's also gridded just as it has been for all of the other sets, which means that it's restricted in its view. And then the fill light over here, which is another FC120C, it's at 3200, so these are all neutralized at 3200. We don't have any kind of like cross color or mixed lighting temperature going on here, because if it's green screen, it might be composited in with different color schemes, so you kind of just want to start from a neutral place, and that's exactly what we're going with here. So overall, I think this is an excellent green screen. It should keep pretty easily, but I guess we'll find out in post, won't we? Okay, well, in a well-planned studio setup like this, you can just sit down like I did just now and just get shooting. You don't have to really think about the setup that much. In fact, remember this, or this, or this. We've come a long way since then, and the fact of the matter is that even just a few years ago, there were things we couldn't do that we could do now in a much simpler setup and a more accessible setup. You don't have to do things like set up a DMX system, for example. All of it can be controlled through a mobile app. And that's beautiful for things like this where we want to do 3 setups in a relatively constrained room. So it's easier than ever before to do this yourself as well. So all of these lights are from Nanlite, but it's interesting because we really only used a fraction of the lineup they have. Not to mention, we only use some of the modifiers that they have as well. So the sky is the limit if you're going to design your own studio or even use them on the go. So I hope you enjoyed our 3 sets here, and I know that I'm going forward because it's a lot easier than before. So let us know in the comments below how you would use these Nanlites in your studio or on the go. My name is Doug with B&H, and I'll see you next time.